Evening, everybody. Welcome to the Chris Salcedo Show worldwide here on the Vida television network. Have some news to share later in the program about what's going to happen with this show in the new year. There are some changes coming, and I think they're all positive, and it's going to be designed primarily to get you more involved in the program. So we'll get to that here in a minute. Let me tell you how to get in touch with the show in the meantime. ChrisSalcedo.com, email and voicemail operations available for you right there. If you want to just reach out a hand and wave hi for instantaneous feedback, go to Twitter at Chris Salcedo TX. Big story the last 24, 36 hours has been that guy, Matt Lauer, longtime anchor at NBC News and host of the Today Show. He was fired amid, you guessed it, allegations of sexual misconduct. Credible enough, apparently, that the NBC brass felt they needed to fire him right away. Reacting to this on the set today was Savannah Guthrie and her co-host, and forgive me, I can never remember her name. It's just because I don't watch very often. But Savannah Guthrie is the only one doing the talking here. And Savannah Guthrie laid out a statement put out by NBC News about Matt Lauer's firing.
Just moments ago, NBC News Chairman Andy Lack sent the following note to our organization. Dear colleagues, on Monday night, we received a detailed complaint from a colleague about inappropriate sexual behavior in the workplace by Matt Lauer. It represented, after serious review, a clear violation of our company's standards. As a result, we have decided to terminate his employment. While it is the first complaint about his behavior in the over 20 years he has been at NBC News, we were also presented with reason to believe this may not have been an isolated incident. Our highest priority is to create a workplace environment where everyone feels safe and protected.
Wait a minute. Look, I think Savannah Guthrie's reaction was genuine. I'm going to take issue with what NBC News, the company, just put out. NBC News, remember, NBC News was the one that spiked, the one news agency that spiked the Harvey Weinstein story. For those of you who don't remember who Harvey Weinstein is, media mogul, big-time Democrat donor, big-time liberal progressive, and he was is a serial abuser of women. And Ronan Farrow broke that story. He took it to this very same NBC News. And you know what they did? They spiked it. They wouldn't run it. Why? Because I believe NBC News protects liberals no matter what they are alleged to have done. So it was Harvey Weinstein, big-time Democrat donor, big-time ally of Hillary Clinton, big-time ally of Barack Obama. So they decided to pass on the story. They tried to bury it. Ronan Farrow then had to take his story to the New Yorker. This is the story that broke this all wide open, folks. The reason why we're seeing so many people across Hollywood and media, and dare I say now increasing pressure on Capitol Hill, is because of the Ronan Farrow story. It was the story of the year, if not the decade. And who tried to kill it? This very same NBC News, who now claims that they're the big champions for women. They may be now, but they weren't such big champions for women when they were protecting Harvey Weinstein, in my humble opinion.
And to ensure that any actions that run counter to our core values are met with consequences, no matter who the offender. We just learned this moments ago, just this morning. As I'm sure you can imagine, we are devastated. And
Savannah Guthrie just said that she learned of it moments ago when she was reading that statement. Somebody who takes issue with that is a guy by the name of Little Brian Stetler over at CNN, who said that they've known about this for days, that NBC has known about it for weeks, and that the staff at NBC has known about it for days. And he was allowed to continue on the air while the investigation was going on. So Stetler is saying that what Savannah Guthrie just said there wasn't true. Now, look, CNN is a fake news operation. I understand that. And that MSNBC and NBC properties, they run a close second. It's hard to know who to believe, when you've got two left-wing biased news organizations telling you different things. I'll just leave it up to you guys to investigate.
we are still processing all of this. And I will tell you right now, we do not know more than what I just shared with you. You know, for the moment, all we can say is that we are heartbroken. I'm heartbroken for Matt. He is my dear, dear friend and my partner, and he is beloved by many, many people here. And I'm heartbroken for the brave colleague who came forward to tell her story, and any other women who have their own stories to tell. And we are grappling with a dilemma that so many people have faced these past few weeks. How do you reconcile your love for someone with the revelation that they have behaved badly? And I don't know the answer to that. But I do know that this reckoning that so many organizations have been going through is important. It's long overdue, and it must result in workplaces where all women, all people feel safe and respected.
The reckoning she's talking about is, I think it's a good case to say it's happening in Hollywood. I think it's a good case to say it's happening in the media. You know where it's not happening, ladies and gentlemen? On Capitol Hill. I think it's a perfect time for me to repeat my call on Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, on Speaker Paul Ryan, on Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer to release all the names of individuals who have had the taxpayers pay off their accusers of sexual misconduct and of abuse. And I'm going to get to more of that in a minute. But let's just review. Lauer, left-wing biased. Charlie Rose, left-wing biased. Mark Halperin, left-wing biased. They're liberals. They're Democrats. All in what I call the basket of biased press. Another guy that's been outed as abusing of women is this guy. He is a loudmouth leftist Latino, ladies and gentlemen. His name is Raul Grijalva. And Mr. Grijalva is a congressman from Arizona. He was alleged to have showed up to work drunk. Now, because of his left-wing extremism, I already think he is a sorry example of a Latino because he sets our people back, trying to consign us to the very types of governments that many of our ancestors fled, Cubans, Mexicans, and others. But Raul Grijalva is the kind of Latino who shows up to work drunk, allegedly. He was caught using taxpayers' money to pay off his accuser, a female accuser, who accused him of perpetuating an unfriendly work environment, an unfriendly workplace environment. Raul Grijalva, ladies and gentlemen, a loudmouth leftist Latino. The other guy named John Conyers, who is one of the big wigs in the Congressional Black Caucus. There are growing calls for him to resign from Democrats because the mountain of evidence. He also used taxpayer dollars to pay off his accusers, which I find patently offensive. Nancy Pelosi called him an icon. I want all of you to see if your local news stations have put a microphone in Democrats' face and saying, do you agree with Nancy Pelosi that John Conyers is an icon? The calls are growing louder, folks, for him to step down. Let me transition, because I really wanted to talk about more substance in this show than all of these salacious scandals going on, primarily among Democrats on Capitol Hill and among Democrats in the media and Hollywood. There's Chuck Toomer, a man I lovingly call Chuck Toomer because he believes in the cancer of Obamacare. So I call him Chuck Toomer. He's a senator from New York. He got really upset over a Donald Trump tweet. Donald Trump tweeted out the morning that Donald Trump was going to meet with him and the aforementioned Nancy Pelosi to try to come together on keeping the government going. Well, Chuck Toomer wants to shut the government down, ladies and gentlemen, because of Donald Trump's tweet, which basically said, hey, I don't see a deal, Donald Trump said, because the Democrats want to raise your taxes. The Democrats want open, uncontrolled, unfettered borders into the United States. And I don't see a meeting of the minds there, said Donald Trump. And then Chuck Schumer said, mean Donald Trump's tweet. I'm not going to do my work. So he didn't show up for the meeting. He said this.
As long as he remains a destructive force, it would be a waste of everyone's time to continue working with someone who clearly has no interest in coming to an agreement. We hope the president, in order to avoid this calamity, will change his mind.
Hey, the president was there. He called the meeting. You were the one, Chuck Toomer, who didn't show up for the meeting. And I'm sorry to say it's hard to credibly claim that you're working very hard to solve these issues when you don't even show up. The president said as much.
Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi did not show up for our meeting today. I'm not really that surprised. We have a lot of differences. They're weak on crime. They're weak on illegal immigration. And the other thing, they want tax increases, and we want major tax decreases. So they decided not to show up. They've been all talk, and they've been no action. And now it's even worse. Now it's not even talk.
The Democrats are working to shut down the government, ladies and gentlemen, because they're going to try to blame this on Donald Trump, his tweets. What do you guys think? Do you think it's, let me put it this way. How much respect do you have for an elected leader who said, oh, the president's tweeting, oh my goodness, I can't show up and do my work? Do you have a lot of respect for that lawmaker? That's Matt Schlapp. He was on Fox News. And I thought he gave a very good response as to what we just saw, from Chuck Schumer, Chuck Toomer, and Nancy Pelosi by not showing up. Did you guys notice, by the way, in that Trump video, there were 2 empty chairs there? Very well staged, very well crafted by the president of the United States and his team. It's hard to negotiate with somebody when they won't even show up, isn't it? And by the way, before I let you guys hear from Matt Schlapp, I want you to consider something. Chuck Toomer and Nancy Pelosi didn't show up to the microphones and say, Donald Trump is 100% wrong. We don't want to raise your taxes. We don't want open borders. We don't want rampant illegal immigration into this country. We're strong on crime. Notice they didn't say that. All they were upset about is that Trump called them out on it. That's what they were upset about. Mr. Schlapp here thinks the Democrats have made an egregious error. And by the way, folks, make no mistake, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Toomer, they are working to shut down the government. And then they're going to try to blame Donald Trump. They're going to have a hard time because they didn't even show up.
The politics of blaming the Republicans for shutting down government, which they do very effectively, it's going to be very hard for them to blame Republicans when they can't even show up. I think this was a stupid tactical mistake by the Democrats. The president dealt with them on the last budget deal and came to an agreement with the Democrats over the Republicans. He's actually shown a preference to listen to them. And the happiest people today were Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan, who didn't have to worry about that rug being pulled out from under them again.
That's a fair point. Look, the president of the United States undercut the Republican Party on the last temporary spending measure for 3 months. He did a deal with Democrats. The difference between this event and the last one is that the last one, Chuck Toomer and Nancy Pelosi showed up and they actually did a negotiation. They actually did a deal. This time they didn't even bother to show up, which tells me everything I need to know, folks. The leaders of the Democrat Party are working to shut down the government. One last thing about a missile test that was conducted by North Korea.
By the way, Shep, I just did a little rough calculation on that North Korean intercontinental ballistic missile. There was one that was fired back in May of this year, Hwasong 12, that went 1,320 miles through the atmosphere and into the lower parts of outer space.
This last one, folks, went 2,800 miles and can hit every part of the United States. I'll be right back. Chris Salcedo Show worldwide here on the Vida television network. Hey, folks, welcome back. It's the Chris Salcedo Show worldwide here on the Vida television network. Coming up on the program, we're going to be talking with Brian Crabtree. He is a conservative talk show host and a guy who knows his P's and Q's when it comes to economic matters. And we're going to talk about your taxes. But the interview you're about to hear happened on the Chris Salcedo Show radio show earlier today. And it gave me an opportunity to give you guys a little bit of a heads up about what's coming up on the Chris Salcedo Show worldwide here on the Vida television network. We will be, not simulcasting, that's the wrong word. We're going to be basically doing the radio show here on the Vida television network. It will be pre-recorded. You will all have an ample time, and I'll make sure you guys have all the contact information to weigh in on the Chris Salcedo Show, and we're going to go from a half an hour to an hour here on the Vida television network. So you guys will actually be able to call in to the Chris Salcedo Show radio show in real time when we're discussing some of these issues. And you will be able to give your feedback, weigh in, especially, this audience in particular is going to be, I think, instrumental in coming to a consensus about how we need to solve the problems with the border. And there are copious, myriad problems with the border, illegal and legal immigration. So my hope is you guys will call into the show, and then you'll be able to call in the morning hours when the show airs live, and you'll be able to tune in at night and hear yourself here on the Vida television network. So there's a whole bunch of logistical reasons why we are doing this. A, to open up more content here on the Vida television network and the Chris Salcedo Show, to give you more of an opportunity to weigh in real time with real issues. But also my own time. So it's everything's conspiring to everybody's benefit. So what you're about ready to hear is a radio interview that I did earlier today. And as you're going to hear, that sometimes live radio doesn't always work out as planned. And you're going to hear some other voices too of my producers, because everything was thrown together last minute because of that they had to let me know what was going on timing wise, and it all just went crazy. So, but there's good information in between the craziness that I want you guys to know about the tax proposals being bandied about on Capitol Hill among Republicans. So without further ado, here's how it went on the Chris Salcedo Show earlier today. All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Chris Salcedo Show. If you're on hold, you want to talk about some of the stuff we've been talking about, just stick with me. I've got to get some tax talk out there because there are some decisions being made on Capitol Hill that will affect you and your family. Joining me now, Brian Crabtree, publisher of Talk40.com, as well as a contributor to Townhall.com, LifeSet.com, ClashDaily.com, and the Daily Caller. Brian, welcome back to the Salcedo Show.
Hey, Chris, good to be with you.
All right, sir, let's talk about this tax reform bill. You know what I'm very uncomfortable about is the fact that not one, but two, but several news organizations are reporting that this all may come down to one guy in the United States Senate. His name is John McCain. And you know what? I just have a real uneasy feeling when I'm relying on John McCain for anything.
Yeah, it's funny how this keeps shaping up, and it's a real shame. First of all, the Republicans clearly aren't prepared to lead and govern, and that's what we're seeing play out here. I'm not sure. I actually believe what I'm about to say. I think John McCain is so jealous of President Trump for being president. John McCain felt he deserved it. He was the anointed one. And I think beyond the tit for tat that McCain and Trump have had, I think McCain wants to derail any success Trump can have.
No, I don't doubt that for a second. Let me let's get to the nuts and bolts of what is being proposed. Now, this Senate bill, in my estimation, is terrible. It was a nod. It was of Washington. It wasn't of the people. That the House took significant steps in the right direction to simplify the tax code, to make sure that that individuals were it was a more fair and simple tax code. The Senate just basically says, hey, we're going to surrender to this idea that whatever Washington wants, Washington gets. It's up to the American people to tighten their belts, and government never has to do without a damn thing. And that's the reason why I'm really suspect of this Senate bill. But there are a couple of good aspects to it. Why don't you outline a few that you've seen?
Well, let me speak to that first. This bill is coming down to the fact that one thing all Republicans agree on is helping big multi-billion-dollar Fortune 500 companies get a tax break. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm for that. It will help jobs. It will repatriate trillions of dollars in investment into our economy. It will put this economy on steroids. So they're right in that position. But I find it also striking that they are all in agreement on what to do for corporations, but they get lost in the weeds. Republicans do, let alone the Democrats, on giving middle-class Americans a tax break. The problems inside this bill, and then Senator Johnson of Wisconsin pointed this out, is the pass-through tax on small businesses. That's sort of a hot potato floated around. And that pass-through tax affects people who run small businesses, who are the lifeblood of the economy as it is now. And it's a simple solution. If you want to try to collect that pass-through tax for people like me who have a one-member LLC, okay, I'm fine with that. Tax me. Give me an incentive, though. If I hire just one employee, that pass-through tax goes way down. The incentive to people and also to lower my taxes by doing something positive for the economy. They don't think that way, and that's a simple solution to a complex problem that would bring Johnson back into the fold to vote yes for this bill.
Well, hold on, because Johnson's out there saying that he got assurances from Donald Trump. He's now on board. He's a yes. Because he got assurances from the president, and he said, look, when the president of your political party, the president of the United States, asks you to meet him halfway, you do it. And so he was on television just yesterday, Brian, saying that he's more in the yes column now than ever. But I don't want to let go something you said about the corporate taxes. Not only does it do everything that you mentioned, but also the dirty little secret about corporations is they don't pay taxes. They pass on the cost of those taxes to we the people. So when their cost of operating goes down, their cost of their products and services also goes down, and that is to the benefit of lower income folks.
It is, and what you're describing more in detail is that, to say General Electric, for instance, who's under a restructuring right now, but General Electric doesn't pay any taxes. On their balance sheet, they pay a ton of taxes. So they make all this revenue in China and abroad. They pay a much lower tax rate there. They book all of their corporate expenses in the United States to take a write-down on their actual income so that they don't have to pay the taxes. They have low profit in America. They have high profit in China. They pay much lower taxes in China. And then the taxes that they do have to pay back to America, as long as that cash stays in an...
Oh, did we lose him? Brian, are you still with us? Can you still hear me, buddy? Oh, we lost him. Oh, well, that is the nature, ladies and gentlemen, of live radio. Sometimes these cell phones don't actually pass muster. YTK, let me know if you get him back, and then we'll try to let him finish out the segment. That's Brian Crabtree, everybody. He's publisher of Talk40.com, as well as a contributor to townhall.com, lifeset.com, clashdaily.com, and dailycaller.com. And as you can tell, he's very versed in financial issues. Another problem that I was going to address with him, the next question I was going to ask him, was about this idea of automatic tax hikes. Automatic tax hikes by the likes of Bob Corker. There's Bob Corker and a couple of other senators who are really questioning whether or not there's going to be sufficient enough growth in this tax package to warrant all the money that government says it needs. Okay, so what these guys have proposed, that if the economy doesn't grow at a sufficient enough rate, that automatic tax increases kick in. Now, what's wrong with this scenario? Well, in my view, folks, I've got to tell you that if you are going to be the one saying, look, okay, I'm going to bank on this. I'm going to have some certainty in this. Oh, thank you, YTK. I'm going to bank on this. And let me bring Brian Crabtree back into this. This idea of an automatic tax hike if growth doesn't happen. I am completely against this because, number one, it ignores the fact that government never cuts anything. That never has to do without anything. It's up to we, the people, to do without something. And it's also this idea that every drop and tittle of spending that government comes up with is worthwhile. And it's nonsensical in my view.
Yeah, you're right about that. A tax that becomes more egregious when the economy is going down is like putting fuel on a fire that's burning down your home. It's not a good idea. And these kind of ideas that come out of Washington just show you how delusional, incompetent, and detached the people that we've elected are in terms of what makes this country work, what makes this economy work. These kind of policies that try to appease liberals or moderate rhino Republicans do nothing to enhance the cause, which is helping the American people, specifically the middle class. And it never ceases to amaze me that they continue to come up with things like this that damage, do the exact opposite of what they say they're trying to do.
Yeah, and you know what? And this whole idea, and this is why people like Bob Corker come up with this idea. Well, if we don't get growth and we don't get the tax receipts that we need in government, then government automatically raises your taxes.
1 minute.
Thank you, YTK. What is the focus there, Mr. Crabtree? What is the focus? Government, government, government. That's all these people think about. We, the people, are lost in the equation.
Well, whether you're Republican or Democrat, if you believe in as a career politician in government and bureaucracy, the more of it that you have, the more power you have. I used to see that when I was in the National Association of Realtors in my real estate career. They wanted just more and more and more agents. They didn't care what the quality of the agents were, because the more agents they had, the more revenue, the more pet projects they could do, the more control, the more power they have. It's that way in trade organizations. It's that way in government. So they want more government. The other side of it is a bit of reality, which I hate to admit, which is the only way we're ever going to cut in our federal budget is if the world cuts us off and says, you no longer can print dollars to buy things around the world and supply your people with what they need. And then we'll have to, because we'll be in an economic crisis. We're going to continue going toward this, financial cliff until eventually, at some point, the world changes its tune, and we're going to be forced to change it. It may be in two lifetimes. I don't know, but at some point, the country's going to run off the financial rails, and we're never politically, my very cynical belief, because these politicians know that the minute you start cutting, they lose their jobs. They have to be patriots to do what's right.
Exactly.
And very few of them are.
Yeah, and the reserve currency status of the American dollar is at risk then too. Brian Crabtree, everybody, publisher of Talk40.com. Sir, always appreciate the time and expertise here on the Salcedo Show.
Great to be with you, Chris.
Okay, ladies and gents, that's going to do it for the Chris Salcedo Show worldwide for this evening. Again, keep in mind, in the new year, starting on January 8th, the Chris Salcedo Show will go to an hour here on the Vida television network, and it will be the radio show. You'll get a full-fledged taste of the radio show, and your ability to participate will be ever expanded. You can do it live. And I don't know. I think it's kind of cool to be able to say, hey, I got through on the Chris Salcedo Show, and I talked with him, and we either agreed or we debated, and I get to tune in at night and come and see how that all went and how it all played out on TV. So I'm hoping that many of you avail yourself of that opportunity. In the meantime, if you want to reach out and say hi, do so at chrissalcedo.com, ChrisSalcedo.com, and you can leave your liberty-loving Latino a voicemail or an email there, or real-time feedback at Chris Salcedo TX at ChrisSalcedo as in Texas, the freest state in the union. All right, folks, have a great night. See you tomorrow for the Vida Television Network and the Chris Salcedo Show worldwide.